Okay, so hello and welcome to this week's event, Making the Most of Technology. I'm going to start with this short introduction and a bit of a demonstration, and then we're going to hear from a few kind-hearted individuals who are going to share their experiences, and then a bit of an open discussion, which will take us through to 3 o'clock even. So on the Our Lancashire website, you can find a simple guide to the different video conference platforms available. And there are quite a few, but my own experience has been that most people have been navigating to Zoom because it's simple, it has less connectivity problems than other platforms, and it has a wealth of extras that make it easy to hold an event no matter whether you've got an audience of 1 or 10,000. Although you have to pay if you're going to have over 100 people. I don't think many of us will be looking at that size of audience though. So I will post a link in the chat in a few minutes, but it'll also be sent out later to you as long as I've got your email address. If you signed up through Eventbrite, I've got that. But otherwise, you can pop it in the chat box, or you can contact me directly on my email, which I'm going to put in there again shortly. So one trick with Zoom is that you can click on those links right away. They'll open up on the device you're using, but you still stay in the call and can hear everything I'm saying. And I'm going to demonstrate another feature now, screen sharing, which means you can show presentations, videos, anything that you have on your computer. So I am just going to show you. Here we have the Our Lancashire website, and when it comes up in a moment, so you can see everything that I'm doing here, and we navigate to support. We have information on here that helps you how to manage a group or team online. So that's something that you can have a look at later on. But I'm not going to make too much about that because we only have an hour. So it's important to remember that people's experiences of a call like this vary depending on the kind of device they're on. And in my case, it's 2. I have a laptop that is connected because there is a lot more functionality that you can access in terms of the tools via a PC or a laptop, whereas I tend to use my iPad for the camera and audio function because the quality there is often better. And having that dual device, if you're hosting a meeting, does also give you an element of extra flexibility. Cost is always an issue for voluntary and community groups and organisations, but most of the solutions that we talk about are free of charge. And in the past few months, as charities and support services have taken themselves online, they have been able to deliver that at little or no cost. However, funding opportunities like Lancashire's Foundation have provided have helped organisations purchase devices and support to help vulnerable and disadvantaged people access online content. And examples of that include Dance Syndrome in Hyndburn, who are delivering dance sessions online for people with learning difficulties. Burnley Boys and Girls Club have been running sessions online every day. Other organisations have used it to purchase resources to help the staff and volunteer do befriending and support calls. There is such a diversity in the way that technology has been used, it is really tremendous. There are disadvantages, obviously, to technology. I will admit that Zoom fatigue, as it's called, is something that I suffer from unnecessarily because I just can't resist signing up to all these different things that are happening online that sound so exciting. And I do suffer for it afterwards. So it's important to remember not to overdo it. And another consideration is, how do we adapt what we're doing to ensure it's accessible for all? So we've talked about briefly about video conferencing, but social media can also play a huge part in utilising technology to help keep in touch and share your message. One event I've been delighted to participate in is a Talking Society event that Pendle-based organisations in situ and Building Bridges have been live streaming to Facebook, which is a Zoom call that you can share to a much wider audience. And Lancashire Archives have actually asked if they can store them as a permanent record of the county in lockdown. So we've got a few excellent case studies from people who have offered to share their experiences. And if I can ask first, Janet Swan, would you like to come in and tell us about what you did with your choir?
Okay, hi everybody. I know quite a few people. Leslie, Ali's waving at me. I don't think, there's a few faces I can sort of recognise, but maybe don't know everybody. But I lead choirs for people with a range of different health problems. So in the past, I've run a group at Leslie's Centre for singing for people with dementia, singing for the brain with the Alzheimer's Society, singing for lung health, which is for people with any kind of long-term breathing difficulty, although we've also widened that out to include people with any other health problems. We sort of use breath and mindfulness to stay calm. I can see there's going to be needing a lot of this sort of thing in the future. In the past, I used to work for the NHS, which is how I probably know quite a few people. I used to work on the Expert Patients Programme, and I've worked in libraries and various places. So, I suppose what I kind of mostly wanted to tell you about was about Zoom, but I have also done a collaborative video with singers. So if you want me to talk about that as well, I know some churches are trying to think about how they do this. So I can say a few words about that. But for Zoom and singing, or anything musical, or anything where you're trying to get people to do something at the same time as each other, in synchronicity, it is virtually impossible on Zoom. People can't really sing at the same time and all be able to hear each other. That's the point. They can sing in their own front rooms, against a backing track, and I can give you a little taste of how that works if you kind of haven't seen how that works. But yeah, singing together, you know, you see these things that Gareth Malone's done and you think, oh wow, that must be so easy, it looks so lovely. People singing together must be a cinch, but it really isn't. And please do ask me questions. So I can see questions bubbling up already on people's faces. But the Alzheimer's Society are doing their Singing for the Brain group through Zoom. My choirs are meeting on Zoom, but it's singing in a different way, and it's singing and doing it in your own front room. And that is really, really different, because you're not hearing your voice surrounded by all the other voices. And so people get a bit freaked out, really. So that would be the same with a drumming group, or people playing instruments together. They're just hearing themselves in isolation, maybe with a backing track. Is anybody doing anything similar to that? I'm just reading, David sent me a comment. Okay, yeah, thanks, David. I'll do that. He
Just
just
whenever you
wanted...
get the chance, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Are you okay visually with following what I'm doing?
Personally, yes, I am. Yes,
Okay.
yes, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if anybody... Leslie, have you tried doing any singing via Zoom? No. No. So shall I just talk us through how I've been doing it? Would that be helpful? Do you want to have a go at singing? No, I'm not going to make you sing. It's fine. Yeah, basically, I do quite a lot of allowing, ensuring that people can be heard in the meeting before we do any singing, and can kind of relax. I'm really interested in stuff about the vagus nerve. I don't know if anybody's done any of the training related to ACEs, childhood ACEs, which is children who've experienced any kind of trauma in their life. But it kind of happens for all of us, really. And if we don't allow people to feel relaxed and calm about what they're doing, then the voice in particular is really, really affected, because it's part of the whole vagus nerve system. And people will feel even more freaked out at hearing their own voice in their own front room, because it will sound weak and squeaky and you know, not what they thought their voice sounded like. And so all those things that people say, oh, you shouldn't be singing, or all those concepts that people have in their head about singing, reinforce, and then, you know, they might leave the choir, which so it has been really tricky, because people haven't been coming to the Zoom meetings. So I've been having to do a lot of this sort of explanation about how it is really different, and just trying to help people to feel calm and connected before we even start singing. So lots of, you know, just giving everybody a chance to say something and be in the moment and calm down. Reminding people to come a little bit early, so that they're not feeling stressed by all the technology and everything, all of that stuff that I'm sure you're all doing. I didn't start Zooming for ages, because, you know, everybody else was doing it, and I was a bit freaked out by it at first. So my own personal emotional reaction to the lockdown was really hard. You know, how am I going to do choirs online? So we were just WhatsApping at first, and that actually really helped. So having a really strong WhatsApp group where people were just sharing how they were coping, that was really, really important. And we still use that. We chat throughout the week in the different choir groups, and then people come together once a week for a Zoom. So shall I just play you a little backing track, and you can hear how it works. So you go into the screen sharing thing. Yes, of course, Gail's going to have to let me do that. I can't hear you, Gail, if you're talking to me.
I've just transferred host responsibilities to you now, Janet. So
okay. All right.
Share.
Brilliant, thank you. So I will share my screen, but also in the bottom, when you go to screen share, there's also something that says share computer sound as well. So if you're doing anything that involves music, sound, anything that you want to, you do have to do that. Otherwise, the sound is only what is produced. You know, it doesn't, it does a horrible sound. So share sound as well as share screen. And then, oh, I've got a load of rubbishy stuff that you don't really want to be seeing. So I'm going to just play you this lovely little song by a colleague of mine called Gitika Partington. And hopefully, give me a thumbs up if you can hear it okay.
I stand tall, watching everything that life gives to me. I stand tall, my feet are rooted to the earth like a strong oak tree. I stand tall, the wind blows, I stand tall. I stand tall, my life grows, I stand tall.
Okay, so that just gave you a little flavour. It's lovely, isn't it, that song? It's so beautiful for anybody, you know, experience any difficulties in life about trying to find your inner strength. That's probably all of us really at the moment. So yeah, people, I would then, you know, do a little bit of teaching against the different backing tracks, and then we can try and play the whole thing joined together, but with, as I say, with people just singing their own parts at home. Does that make sense? Any questions about that? Abigail, oh, you say you've been to a V choir on Zoom. I don't know what that is. Do you want to say something about it, Abigail?
I think Abigail's muted at the moment, but maybe if we come back to questions later on, Janet, after
okay. Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
I think.
She could unmute herself, could she? No. Oh, okay. And then, yeah, as I say, the other thing that I've done is a joined up choir video, but it did involve having to use sound engineers and video engineers. So it's not as simple as it looks when Gareth Malone does it. But people are, again, filming themselves at home singing against a backing track. They have to wear earphones. It's, yeah, I can send the instructions if anybody's interested, but it's not as easy as it sounds.
And the Sing Water North video that was on YouTube of everyone together, absolutely fantastic. I will share that link with everybody after.
Oh yeah, thank you, Gail. Yeah, singing Moon River. I'm sure most people know the song Moon River, so yeah, just to enjoy it. It's a lot of older people. Most of the people in my choirs are older, and they really grappled hard with the technology. So you were already saying that, Gail, that the thing about accessibility has been a real challenge for me, and because even just to Zoom, really just WhatsApp, or even to get an email. So yeah, it has been a real challenge keeping in touch with people. But we're still together, says she in a squeaky voice.
And that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's about keeping everything going and keeping together. Thank you very much, Janet. If you just hand the hosting responsibility back to me. I can see lots of people giving you applause there, silent applause.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
We're going to move over to Jake Cocker now from Lancashire Women, who's going to tell us about what they've been doing to take their services online. Jake.
Before you do that, you just need to remind me how to hand the thing back to you, Gail. I've forgotten how to do it.
If you go into, this is helpful learning for everybody. You should be, if you go into the participant.
Oh, yeah.
To alter that. Thanks. Jake.
Okay, so thanks Gail and thanks Janet. So we are Lancashire Women, and I joined the organisation in October last year as part of a grant that they received from the National Lottery, and it was about having earlier engagement with women and also how to utilise digital solutions better within the whole organisation. So I joined in October last year, and my kind of 3-year project was really about how to start having conversations internally and externally with different types of stakeholders about how we can start to utilise digital tools. And after 5 months of planning, we were getting to a point of starting to have conversations, and then lockdown kicked in, and basically my job became one of, well, it changed from being one of planning to being one of delivery. So it was very important about how we could continue our services. So I don't know who knows about Lancashire Women, but last year we helped over 8,500 women in Lancashire about how they can empower themselves, they can be more creative, and they can understand about how to be the woman that they want to be and the individual that they want to be. So there's a lot of different services that we offer. So we offer mental health services, employment advice and guidance, money advice, and justice and safety. We work with a lot of different bodies, including Lancashire County Council, the local CCGs, right up to kind of the Ministry of Justice and things like that, to allow us to deliver our different services. So what we saw as being the most important thing was, you know, everything is really linked around mental health, and mental health is our biggest area. And we saw that what we needed to do initially was continue to have our communication and that communication with our service users. I hate the term service users, but that's what we call them internally. I prefer to call them clients because I'm from a commercial background and they're our clients. So I'm going to call them clients from now on. But our clients were really, it was really important to make sure that they knew that we were still there, we were still in touch with them. So we set up, well, basically everybody moved to working remotely. And luckily we were already pretty well set up for that. We all had laptops because we have our different centres, and we all base ourselves from different centres depending on the day of the week, depending on what our needs are, what our meetings are. So we were all very kind of mobile. So moving home was not too much of a change. But what we needed to do was make sure that we could stay in touch with our individuals and our clients. Obviously, we need to make sure that our funders were, you know, kept aware of everything, and you know they were fantastic in, you know, allowing us to be able to, you know, change the way that we provided our services. But what we started to do immediately, which I'd already probably started to do about 2 months before, was start to look at things like Zoom and different solutions to be able to have face-to-face video conferencing with clients. And when we started to look at it, we looked at really kind of the main areas for us when we looked at different pieces of software like Skype and, you know, WhatsApp video and things like that, and Zoom as well, was we wanted to make it the least and the lowest barrier to entry for any user. So we really focused on, you know, what is the simplest thing to do, and Zoom came out leaps and bounds above everybody else, because it didn't require you to sign up. It didn't require, you know, a great deal of knowledge. It required, you know, obviously there's a certain kind of comfort level, but, you know, the people who weren't able to use Zoom would carry on using our telephone therapy services and advice services. But what we did was we wanted to, you know, have groups and make people start to feel part of a community and a part of a, you know, a self-help group. And we saw that as being such an important part of, you know, our clients' growth. And what we started to look at was safeguarding around information. So safeguarding around kind of data protection items, so contact details and things like that. Nearly every other software that you use tends to share each individual client's details with everybody else on the call. So if you're on WhatsApp, it will share your phone number. If you're on Skype, it will share your username and, you know, that usually your email address as well. Well, whereas Zoom didn't do that, so we saw that as being a massive plus point. We looked at when we started looking at it, in the first few weeks of lockdown, obviously in the media and especially on the BBC, there was a lot of talk about Zoom bombing, and we started to look at what was the likelihood of that happening, what were the reasons why that was happening, and what I saw after discussions with people who had had that happen was that they weren't taking steps in there to put security levels up. So exactly kind of what Gail's done, putting a password on it is a basic level. The next level is putting a waiting room on there. So you can in that waiting room, you can stop people from coming onto the call if you don't know who they are. Then then we start to kind of implement our own kind of security, in the fact that we don't send out links until an hour before the meeting. We don't we have 2 people on the call at any one time. One of them is a safeguarding specialist who, if there is any reason why somebody needs to be taken off a call, then he can do that. And what we saw was, a really fantastic take up with that service. What we found as well was that there were people who we were reaching out to and being in touch with, who wouldn't have joined one of our group sessions if it was in a centre, but they would have joined, but they were happy to join it because it was online. So then we suddenly realised there's a whole area of the population who, there are a multitude of reasons why people can't come into a centre, whether it's anxiety, there's childcare issues, there's financial issues, or just really the time to be able to come in and do that. So being able to dedicate, instead of coming in for 2 hours and maybe an hour commute each side of that, it came down to basically an hour call online. So it became a lot easier for people to be able to sign up to. So we realised, that was going really well. And from next week, we'll be rolling that out to another 10 groups every week that we'll be having Zoom calls with. And there's going to be up to 10 people on each call. And hopefully by the end of the year, we're looking at having over 700 people treated just by using Zoom. And that's been a fantastic kind of arsenal, addition to our arsenal of how we can, provide our services. Another thing we've started to do more recently is start in more of a kind of a marketing drive, really. And something that Gail saw yesterday was our Facebook Live videos. And what we did was, we found therapists who were, confident on camera, happy to do, very kind of short videos, but doing it live adds a certain element of kind of immediacy to the ask, and so or the offer of service. And so we saw that we were putting out videos and that was going well, but actually if we could say to someone, we're here now, and we'll be having we're starting sessions next week for certain groups, and that really kind of really went down well. We've had a lot of sign-ups over the last 24 hours since the one which Gail saw yesterday, and the same that we had last week with another Facebook Live that we did. Beyond that, we've started to do our CBT training, therapy, on using videos and using YouTube and private links within YouTube, so that we can send it to specific people, and we're able to ensure that we're tracking their mental health levels as they go along a course, and also that we're able to provide more support to them than just the videos. So whatever we see is the way forward. It's not just about sending someone a video and just going, there you go, go and sort yourself out. It's about offering that handheld service that we always offer from within a centre. And yeah, I mean, that's about it at the moment, but we've also started to kind of utilise a lot more kind of sign-up forms online. So previously a lot of our stuff was paperwork in which we, people signed up for something and then it was entered into our system. But what we realised was, obviously the centres aren't there, so we need to make our kind of self-referral process a lot easier and a lot simpler. So we've added that to our website. We've added, a quite a substantial form for individuals to fill in. It's more substantial if we're getting a third-party referral, but for an individual, it's quite a simple form, and we've made sure the language is, really stripped down to being as simple and as easy as possible to understand. And yeah, I think that's about it.
Thank you so much. That was really informative. I was a victim of Zoom bombing on another event that I was on outside of work. It was extremely stressful because we had a guest speaker who was quite a well-known name at that point, and we ended up having to cut the meeting short as a result. So, but there are lots of precautions that you can take, and to be fair, we hadn't taken all the necessary precautions at that time.
Gail, can you describe Zoom bombing? Sorry, I don't know what it is.
Right, okay,
Sorry.
so basically when an outsider comes into your or a group of outsiders come into your meeting and do things that you would rather they didn't. So worst case scenario would be people sharing pornographic images, which is absolutely horrific situation to be in. In our case, we had groups of young men with very broad London accents. So, this was obviously fun and games to them. And they would just basically share, very abusive language. But it was very technically done, because what the meeting host found was that at one point they had over 100 attendees in the waiting room of the meeting trying to get in, and it was all one person. But the way that they were using their computer to hack the situation, they were basically replicating themselves. And when they were inside the meeting, they were replicating us. So they would appear as one member of the audience, same name, and they get kicked out, and then they'd appear as another member of the audience. So constantly, whoever's adminning the Zoom call is having to work out which person is the fake one and which one is the real one, so I can get them out of the meeting. Not all Zoom bombing looks like that. There is a huge variation in people's experiences, but it's like anything really. You can hold a meeting in a public place, and you might get somebody turning up who wants to cause a problem. So
I always say that when my background is within digital, I've worked in it for 15 years, in fact 18 years now. I keep getting that date wrong, but people always say to me, how can I ensure it's secure? And you're going, well, if people can hack into the FBI website, then people can get into anything. Nothing's secure. They can hack into banks, and they have levels of security that you wouldn't even comprehend how difficult it would be to get into. And things are left open. I think the way to do it is to put in levels in which you can control it. You can, I would always say never share a group meeting on a Facebook page or anything like that. Ask people to sign up to it. As soon as you start to make it public, then you're opening up the door to anybody being able to do that. I think what Gail is talking about there is someone who really knows what they're doing when it comes to that, and those people are very few and far between. What you're looking at really on normal kind of Zoom bombing things are people who are probably a bit savvy, but they're just seeing a public opportunity of causing havoc, and it's terrible, really.
It is, but it's like anything, you've got to weigh up the risk. And for me, the advantages that video calling is offering at the moment far outweighs the risk of that happening, especially when you've taken the right precautions. Thank you very much, Jake. We're going to move, if it's all right, to Anne Oliver from Age UK, who has started up a dementia hub. Anne.
Hi, just hang on. I switched myself off and on and off again. Hi everybody, listening really keenly to what Jake had to say, and Janet, and I did join one of the Singing for the Brain sessions, not to sing because I put the cats out of business, but it was interesting to see how they did it. I understand now about people actually singing at home and not being included in it, so I understand how that works. So yes, we decided, so we've got Abigail and Natasha and Teresa, I think, all here today, who were parts of our Dementia Community Links team. It's based in Oh, Chorley and West Lancs area, and of course, like everybody else, they could no longer go out and do home visits, have community sessions. So we became more and more aware of the fact that they were calling people on a regular basis, and the level of stress amongst carers, really, particularly for people with dementia who couldn't understand why they couldn't go out, they couldn't go to the normal places, etc. So we have been running dementia hubs, or been involved in them in different parts of the county. So I thought, well, should we try and move them online? I cheated though. I got somebody to host them for us, who is an organisation called More Human, who happen to be based in Brighton, but has had support from the chair of our board in setting up. And so I got Mel to host the first and second meetings, so that she's acted like you, Gail, as the administrator, and sent out the Zoom codes for it, and controlled people coming in. So in the first session, we've only had one, we have the second tomorrow, to which people are welcome to join us. So I'm sort of going to try and learn tomorrow, and have been doing tutorials myself, to take more control over the room, so we can be allowed to fly free and do it ourselves. We had 34 people in the room on the first session, which was, considering I only sent an email out 2 weeks beforehand, was pretty incredible, and I think showed the level of need. And we split it the first time between agencies introducing themselves, at about 30 seconds to introduce their company, organisation, then the people in the room, if they wanted to introduce themselves. Some carers were with their partners, some weren't. Then we broke into separate rooms. So I'd split up the people who were attending the carers and agencies into 4 different rooms, a little bit geographically, and a mixture of agencies, so that if people had similar questions, there'd be somebody in the room that could equally answer it. So we had about 25 minutes in separate rooms, then came back into the group, had a chat about what did people want going forward, how did they want it to look, had a little bit of mindfulness at the end. A lady called Rachel, who some may know from Made in Haslingden, she helped me with the first session as well. And she got all the carers to virtually give themselves a tap on the heart and remind them it was okay for them to look after themselves too. But what was really interesting was the number of referrals that came out of that first session, the number of signposts, and social services and Lancashire carers particularly have been kept very busy since. The level of stress and lack of knowledge on the part of the carers as to where to go. A lot were terrified as to what would happen if they were sick, and who they could go to. So I think the outcomes, I don't know why our lot are all flipping muted and camera switched off. Oh, Leslie, you were there as well. Leslie Bowden, sorry, Leslie. I think we were all quite really pleasantly, positively surprised by the number of people that came, the agencies that came, and all the outcomes that have come from it. So the next one's tomorrow, and I'm hoping to have somebody from the Admiral Nurses talking tomorrow a little bit about what they do, and a little bit about an organisation called Rosemary and Thyme, who are doing gardening memory packs for people free of charge. So if anybody knows people who would benefit from some activity packs, it's Donna at Rosemary and Thyme, T-I-M-E, and just get in touch with me about that. So we're going to try and theme each one on a fortnightly basis. The one after that, we're going to do hydration, and a gentleman from Vegetarian for Life is joining us, and he's going to talk about interesting ways to keep hydrated. But also, we're aware that a lot of older people, they work specifically with the over 65s and care homes, educating care home staff about, actually, if somebody's been a vegetarian for life, don't start giving them meat and eggs and fish or whatever when they go in a care home. So they are going to come and do a little bit of a talk. They're also setting up, wanting to do a face group live cookery session. And so if anybody knows people who are vegetarians, thinking about being a vegetarian, if you get in touch, I can give you the details. But it's been very that's been quite interesting, and they most certainly are not evangelical. I'm a hardened meat eater, and they ain't tried to convert me. So I dropped that into conversation in about the first 3 minutes, so they knew who they were talking to. So so we're going to try and theme it, and so please, we're very keen that people are aware of it. If it gets any bigger, we've had about another 4 or 5 families asked to join this week. We will probably split the group and try and do more than 1 session a month, and possibly do it more geographically. At the moment, we're well represented from the western centre of the county and from the north, but not from the east. And so I know quite a few of you are based in the east of the county, so please, do share the information, because I'm very, very worried. There are so many carers for people with dementia who are totally climbing the wall. So we also actually, as an aside, we actually have some tablets that we can loan to people to access the groups or to Zoom family or friends, or and I know people are getting more into their bubbles now, but that don't make a jot of difference if your family's in London. So if anybody knows older people over sort of 50, 55 that don't have the equipment but can sort of use a mobile phone, because they're tablets that with the icons on, so you can push for Facebook, push for Zoom, but you can't browse on the internet. So they're no good for anything other than social interaction. And they've been loaned to us by a software company on that understanding that they're used purely for like family interaction or support interaction. Have I missed anything, Leslie? Put your microphone's off, Leslie.
You've done very well, Anne. Yeah, you've covered most of the things. Yeah,
and I think Jake covered some of the concerns that we had around, keeping it safe and secure, yeah, and accessible, and making people realise, again, people are vulnerable, that if they want to bow out from the session at any time, they can go. They don't have to talk if they don't want to. They don't have to go into a group. All those sorts of, Janet, you're nodding as well, all those sorts of issues. And we've also set a few ground rules. We talked about it in the first session and emailed it out afterwards to say, these were suggested ground rules. If you sort of disagree or have anything to add, blah, blah, please send it back. And it's just about keeping things confidential in the room unless agreed otherwise, letting people talk, feeling that people don't even have to have the camera on. We took a photo at the end, and it's dead easy on Zoom, because if you don't want your photograph taken, you switch your camera off. You don't have to have privacy whatevers to have a photograph taken. And I think that's about it, but we're very much learning as we go along.
Thank you very much, Anne. There was so much content in there as well. The tablets fascinate me. The fact that you can get them that are just for that social connection. I hadn't heard about those.
They're not. They're blocked. They're not made that way. The software company that's lent them to us, a company called Softcat. They've lent us 50, and actually Lancashire County Council have taken some offers to distribute as well. So no, they've just blocked that. They also come with 3 months worth of connectivity, so that so that people don't actually have to have broadband in the house to use it. And I think people will probably be, I'm saying this, if people are shown to be really using them, benefiting from them, and they're prepared to pay for their own, pay as you go, as it were, after the initial 3 months, I don't think they'll want them back. The value of a second-hand Huawei, whatever, after it's been used, is going to be precious little. But I am taking one back from somebody because he won't use it.
Yeah.
So I'll have it back for somebody else.
And it's all these solutions are out there. You just have to know the right people to ask and the right places to look. I know with the Lancashire Foundation funding, there have been some submissions put in for data costs, basically, because people have devices, but they don't have access to the data to do the connectivity that they want to do. And I'm glad that you talked about breakout rooms as well. They're something that I've enjoyed when I've been in different Zoom meetings. Certainly, if you want to have a conversation, it's easier if you're in a group of no more than 10. So, you know, segmenting a call into breakout rooms, fantastic functionality that's available, you know, to everyone who's got a Zoom account, whether it's paid or free.
And we set it up so that we put the people in the rooms in advance, so that if some people turned up at the last minute, then we move them around. But the beauty as well was that as facilitator, I could flit from room to room. So I could join a room, find out what the conversations were, you know, see if there was any help people wanted. One room was in hysterics and laughter, so I thought, well, they don't need me. But you could flit in and out, so you could just have an overall picture. So when you brought people back together, you had a bit of an idea as to what had been, you know, going on, really. So yeah, the breakout rooms worked quite well.
Brilliant. And I think the only other thing I would like to add before we move on to the question and answer session is, if I was to change one thing about this meeting today, it would be that there would be an additional host as well as myself, because trying to do everything when you've got a crowd of people is a big ask. You know, you need to have 6 pairs of eyes to track the conversation in the chat room, to see whether everyone's all right on camera, to speak, to remember everything that you're supposed to say. So it certainly is easier to host if you've got somebody fulfilling the admin function and a different person hosting the meeting and talking. So thank you again to all our 3 speakers. We do have some time left for a question and answer session now. So feel free. Let's see if we can get away with just unmuting and jumping in with a question. I don't know whether that's dangerous or not, but we'll see how we go on.
Gail, can I start? Can you hear me, Gail?
Yeah.
Firstly, thank you for all the speakers. That was really inspirational and insightful, and I'm learning a massive amount. A couple of times we've talked about the free and pay versions of Zoom. And again, I'm not really clear on what's free and what you pay for at the moment. Is that something you might be able to expand on?
Yes, so Zoom, they were quite generous over the first couple of months of lockdown. They would usually impose a 40-minute limit on a free account. So if you're speaking to somebody one-to-one, you can stay on for 12 hours. It's not great, actually. I've got a couple of friends who ring me up, and we do struggle to quit the conversation. It would be nice if that did cut off after 40 minutes. But if you've got, I think, 4 or more people in the call, it truncates at 40 minutes. If you can leave the call and jump straight back in using the same link, but if you don't want that interruption, you have to pay. It's not a huge subscription. I think with VAT, it works out at less than £15 a month for the basic level subscription. Yeah. So if it's something that you're using on a regular basis, it possibly is worth the money. Obviously, all the different sites, Zoom or Microsoft Teams or any of the other competitors out there, you can go to their website and they will have a chart on there that shows you what the different types of accounts are and what you get for that functionality. But for most people, a free Zoom account is more than sufficient for what you'll need to do. And if you do need to do anything bigger and longer and better, then you've probably got a budget for £15 a month.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Gail, how do you set up the breakout rooms?
Okay, so this is definitely easier done on a laptop. And if you just bear with me a second while I have a... Right, so it's not something I've actually had a go at yet, but when you're not in a video call and you look at your Zoom account, there are lots and lots of different settings. So you can, as Anne said, you can set it up beforehand, that you can either select specific people that are going to be going into certain rooms, or you can set it up that it just does a random division. And I think, I'm not 100% sure on this, I think it only shows me the option to implement breakout rooms if it's something I've set up prior to starting the call.
Okay. Thank you.
But on the Zoom website, and again, it's going to be the same with other platforms, there's loads of training videos that show you exactly how to do what you want to achieve. So
YouTube's a great resource for finding things out. Don't try Zoom Help though. Their help system is massively overloaded, and they don't get back to you.
But yeah, even just going on and watching a couple of those videos, you'd be astounded what you can actually do that you might not even have considered. Things like pop-up surveys. I could have set it up today that a survey would appear on the screen in front of you that you would just click the answer to. You know, if I had a single question, we could have had a series of them going through the meeting. The possibilities are endless.
Can I ask another one, Gail?
Go on, Paul.
Thank you. I'm getting you back, you see. You always ask questions at my meetings. No, seriously, I think we've given a big thumbs up to Zoom today, and I've learned a lot about it. And this question might relate to a follow-up tutorial, but as you know, we can't access Zoom on our constabulary devices, so we're all using our own. However, in the future, we may well be able to access on our constabulary devices Microsoft Teams. Does Microsoft Teams have similar functionality? Does anybody have experience to compare and contrast the two, or is that for another day?
Microsoft Teams has quite a mixed reception.
Right.
So yes, you can do pretty much everything you can do on Zoom in Microsoft Teams, but I think most people would agree it is nowhere near as simple as it is with Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
There are limitations with Microsoft Teams in that it's locked down to businesses and educational organisations. So it's not as easy to use at all when it comes to getting a diverse audience attending. But I think that is something we will look forward to learning about as we forward. And the other thing there is there's a lot of organisations in the same position that we are at Lancashire Constabulary, in that Zoom is not permitted on your work device. But I think, being realistic, the situation we found ourselves in this year, I think a lot of organisations will have to reevaluate their IT policies to reflect what people actually need to do their job efficiently and partner with other agencies.
The world has changed massively, hasn't it, in the last 6 months? Yeah. Thank you very much, Gail.
Gail, can I just come in there? I do some work for the NHS, and Zoom is absolutely forbidden in the NHS because all the data security concerns, some of which Zoom have actually addressed within the past month. So in the NHS, it's almost exclusively Teams that are being used. I would agree with you, Gail. Similar sort of functionality, but I find Teams harder to use, and I think I've got a good level of computer literacy. And on the comment about it's kind of a limited distribution, a lot of the NHS services are now looking at using Zooms to deliver online training to patients. So I think you might see improvements in that aspect as Microsoft understand that there's a market there that they need to make it simple for people to access. So for example, there's 2 sort of diabetic courses at the moment that are being delivered largely on Teams. And again, to pick up a comment that one of the other speakers made, the level of engagement on the digital course is far superior to that on the face-to-face courses that were being run. So I think video is the way forward. Hope that helps.
Thank you very much. I know I'm definitely enjoying this as a medium. It has had mixed receptions. People are often reluctant to come on, especially if they think they're going to be on camera all the time. I have been quite conscientious to tell people you don't have to have your video on, you can be muted until you get comfortable with using video calls. You can limit your participation to suit yourself. Do we have any, I'm aware it's just coming up to 3 o'clock now, do we have any other questions before we draw the meeting to a close?
Could Anne please repeat the name of the device that's being shared, and whether the other counties are doing that, if you know?
Sorry, I don't know if other places are. I know for children, if anybody's aware of children that are struggling at home, West Lancs Freemasons have donated a lot of money for computers, and I think Lancaster University are handling that. They are Huawei Media 3 devices. They're a tablet, about a 9-inch tablet, and they're supposed to be very good ones, actually. So I've put my email address in the group chat. So if anybody wants to pick up on it, that the email address is there, just aoliver@AGK-Lancs. I'm sorry, did I miss introductions, Gail? Because I was a couple of minutes late. I don't know everybody in the room.
Yeah, we didn't actually do an introduction. We just had a bit of a general chat before the meeting started. But no, we didn't do individual introductions on this occasion. It's something for me to bear in mind going forward. But whether, I suppose, like with yours, Anne, it depends on how many people you've got in the room as to whether that's viable or.
Yeah. Would people be interested in sharing the sort of participation list, though? Because it'd be quite, I'll contact Janet afterwards about the singing, but it'd be quite nice to have each other's email addresses, so we could contact each other afterwards. I'll wave at Dillis.
I'm getting a lot of thumbs up there. If anyone has any opinion to that, no, that seems fine. And because we recorded this session, I think we are hoping to share it to a wider audience as well, because we've had some great feedback from yourself, Anne, and from Jake, and from Janet. It's been a really good session. Thank you, everybody. Just one final opportunity to ask a question. No? So in that case then, I will just repeat again what I welcomed with, that Our Lancashire is a Police and Crime Commissioner initiative to bring people of Lancashire together and make our communities a better place to live. And as community engagement officers, we're here to support you getting Lancashire residents involved in what you're doing. If you've heard anything here today that you want to take further, please do get in touch and we'll do our best to help you achieve that. And thank you all for attending. I'm going to be here same time next week with another coffee chat, fundraising in lockdown, because as much as the pubs might be reopening this weekend, it's going to be quite a long time yet, I think, before group and community activities get back to normal. And I think fundraising is an issue that is a real problem for a lot of organisations with the way that we've had to adapt. So thank you again to everybody. I will be in touch shortly with information from today's session and the contact list so that you can keep in touch. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
You should have done a screenshot. Can we do a screenshot?
Oh,
Can we do a screen photo?
yeah.
I don't know how do we do
Big
it?
smile, everybody. Hang on. Big smile. Oh, my face started twitching then. That's what happens if I smile for too long. So thank you again.
Thank you.
And go and enjoy the sun.
Real. Thank you.
you.
Thank you, Gail. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gail. Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.